If a ruler fought hundreds of battles throughout his life and remained undefeated amid the brutal clashes of the cold weapon era, he ought to be revered as a sacred figure by later generations. Yet amid the endless sands of ancient West Africa, the great founder of the Songhai Empire left behind an eerie and blood-stained enigma in historical records. His name was Sunni Ali. Tonight, let the soft glow of the hearth fire accompany us as we explore the story of his life. In the writings of Orthodox scholars, he was depicted as a desert demon who could summon wind and rain on the Niger River and curse his foes with ancient dark magic, a cruel tyrant who would order entire groups of scholars to be drowned in the river on a whim. But in the folk ballads sung by the Songhai people late at night, he was the son of the desert who freed them from bondage and carved out a vast golden territory for them with his scimitar and steed. This man knelt devoutly in grand mosques by day, yet whispered to ancient spirits in the lonely wilderness after dark. His death was bizarre and shrouded in mystery. He did not fall to an enemy's blade, nor pass away on a luxurious bed. Instead, on his way back after quelling a rebellion, he and his horse sank silently into the silt of a dry riverbed so shallow that it did not even reach the animal's hooves. With his pride of never having known defeat, along with those pagan legends that the world could never fully understand, he vanished forever into the night of West Africa. Fate never offered this young man a golden crown symbolizing glory at the very beginning. Instead, it bound him with invisible heavy chains. By the mid-15th century, the once mighty Mali Empire was already on the decline, yet it remained an unshakable colossus to the small Songhai people. To ensure the absolute submission of the Songhai, Mali's army took their young prince away and imprisoned him as a hostage in the opulent yet cold imperial court of Timbuktu. That captive youth was none other than Sunni Ali. During his long years of confinement in Timbuktu, Sunni Ali endured an agonizing inner struggle every single day. On one hand, he was forced to receive rigorous and advanced Islamic education from scholars of North Africa, learning to study profound scriptures and laws as a man of culture. On the other hand, when night fell and the foreign scholars departed, the ancient animist beliefs inherited from his mother's lineage stirred restlessly in his veins. His mother came from the distant land of Fala, an ancient realm where witchcraft prevailed and people believed they could communicate with trees and rivers. Those ancient forbidden arts, deemed heretical and evil in the court of Timbuktu, became his only spiritual sustenance and shield during countless sleepless nights under surveillance. He pretended to obey the Mali rulers with icy composure, but every time he gazed toward the Niger River, his homeland, his eyes grew sharper, like a lone wolf sharpening its fangs in the dark. He knew well that in this false civilization built on gold and lies, true virtue was never the key to survival, only overwhelming power that could shatter all established order. When internal strife tore the Mali Empire apart and left an irreparable rift, Sunni Ali slit his jailer's throat on a moonless stormy night. Mounting a stolen horse, he charged fearlessly into the raging sandstorm. Upon his return to Gao, his hometown, Sunni Ali was not greeted with blind cheers from his people. What awaited him was a dilapidated land, on the verge of being torn apart by neighboring nomadic tribes. At that time, fierce Tuareg raiders plundered Songhai villages day and night, seizing grain and enslaving locals. Faced with the despair and numbness that engulfed the entire nation, the newly enthroned Sunni Ali made a radical decision that defied all traditional military strategies of his time. Instead of building tall defensive walls, he conscripted all able-bodied Songhai men into a full-time army on an unprecedented scale. He assembled a fleet of thousands of war canoes to command the Niger River, and formed a swift cavalry armed with fine steel scimitars. In the years that followed, this army operated like a relentless war machine across the West African highlands, with Sunni Ali as its sole soul. His style of warfare knew no grace or courtesy, defined only by extreme speed, ruthlessness and surprise. While the Tuareg feasted on wine in their desert camps, Sunni Ali's cavalry would emerge like phantoms from sandstorms, striking with cold blades in the darkest hours before dawn. He never stayed in one place for more than a few months. He was either launching an attack or marching toward the next battlefield. Such grueling marches, pushing human endurance to the limit, filled his enemies with deep-seated dread. A terrifying rumor spread across West Africa: Sunni Ali of Songhai was no mortal man. He mastered ancient sand magic, capable of tucking tens of thousands of soldiers into a magical pouch and deploying them instantly thousands of miles away. Upon hearing these fearful tales, Sunni Ali let out a low, hoarse, and cold laugh beside the campfire at night. He understood human weakness all too well. Far from clarifying the rumors, he began to wear elaborate feathered robes of traditional shamans during marches, letting fear spread like a plague through enemy camps. When Sunni Ali's warhorses finally trampled down the grand gates of Timbuktu, the city that had once held him captive, he reached the pinnacle of his power, and also faced a brutal ideological clash with the intellectual elite of his era. Timbuktu was not only a city of gold, but a sacred hub for Islamic scholars across West and North Africa, home to thousands of respected judges, academics, and wealthy merchants. These intellectuals, accustomed to judging desert tribesmen with elegant scriptures and arrogant airs, initially believed the undefeated monarch would follow the example of Mali's former emperors, coming with chests of gold to beg for their praise and political legitimacy. Sunni Ali shattered their expectations in the bloodiest way possible. In his cold political logic, these scholars were no saints, but parasites hiding in their ivory towers, draining the lifeblood of Songhai with foreign faith and tedious rituals. Worse still, he discovered they maintained secret correspondence with remnants of the Mali Empire and Moroccan merchants from North Africa, plotting to destroy his fledgling empire through intrigue. On the third night after the city fell, Timbuktu descended into a nightmare for the learned. Seated on a simple throne carved from ivory and ebony, Sunni Ali calmly issued the order to purge his foes. Numerous esteemed scholars and judges were dragged roughly out of libraries filled with parchment scrolls. Beneath the bleak moonlight along the banks of the Niger River, Songhai soldiers cast them into the icy waters. The river swallowed their cries for help, along with precious manuscripts recording ancient knowledge. The few scholars who escaped fled deep into the desert, cursing Sunni Ali with vicious words along the way. In their writings, they portrayed him as a godless fiend who fed on human blood. Standing amid ruins and bloodshed, gazing at the empty mosques, Sunni Ali was consumed by overwhelming loneliness and madness. He knew he had ended an old era, yet he had also exiled himself to the opposite side of civilization, walking alone into an endless darkness with no predecessors to follow and no successors behind. The bloody purge in Timbuktu laid bare the deep religious divide hidden beneath the prosperity of the Songhai Empire. Though Sunni Ali continued to attend public prayers, and even married several devout noblewomen of Islamic faith for political gain, his obsession and reliance on traditional indigenous witchcraft grew increasingly morbid with age and the mental toll of endless wars. A strange power dynamic took root across the vast territory of his empire. During court sessions by day, Sunni Ali listened to rational reports on taxation and laws from his Islamic ministers. Yet in his private chambers late at night, his companions were ancient shamans summoned secretly from the forests of Fala, their bodies daubed with white bone powder. He suffered from recurring nightmares, haunted by the ghosts of the scholars drowned in the Niger River, their forms twisted with fish scales, tapping at his bed curtains on windless nights. To ease his crippling anxiety, he ordered shamans to perform bloody pagan rituals for his warhorses and scimitars before every decisive battle. His once loyal Muslim generals watched these surreal scenes, their initial fear gradually turning into profound disappointment and cold detachment. What offended them most was Sunni Ali's blatant disrespect and desecration of religious traditions. During a long-distance march in the sweltering month of Ramadan, countless soldiers collapsed from severe dehydration. Even so, the generals insisted on halting the march to observe complicated prayers before sunset. Enraged, Sunni Ali hacked apart the supporting poles of a makeshift prayer tent with his scimitar. He shouted at the generals kneeling on the sand, "If your God can protect you from enemy blades, then stay on your knees. But my army marches on." The rift between him and the empire's highest-ranking officials became irreparable. That night, Askia Muhammad, his most trusted chief general, polished his armor in silence. The fire in his eyes faded, replaced by a cold resolve to betray his ruler and seek redemption. In the late autumn of 1492, a severe and prolonged drought swept over the West African highlands. Tributaries of the Niger River dried up in large numbers, revealing jagged red soil and cracked riverbeds. Sunni Ali had just won another grueling campaign to suppress a rebellion in the south, once more defending his unbroken record of victory. Yet during the march back to the capital, the aging monarch, scarred by decades of battle and poisoned by occult potions, looked unusually worn and frail. He often rode his loyal black warhorse, scarred just like himself after more than a decade of service, far ahead of the main army, leaving all his generals and guards behind in lonely shadow. One afternoon, the sky turned an eerie blood red. Fine sand drifted motionless in the air, creating an oppressive hush that was hard to bear. The army reached a small tributary of the Niger called Koni. Reduced by the drought to a shallow stream of muddy silt, it barely covered a horse's hooves. Staring at the tranquil-looking waters, Sunni Ali let out a long, hollow and sorrowful sigh for no apparent reason. Ignoring the guards' pleas and refusing to wait for engineers to build a pontoon bridge, he reined in his horse sharply and rode alone into the murky silt. What happened next became the greatest unsolved mystery in the history of the Songhai Empire, a puzzle that scholars and physicians of later generations chose to avoid. The moment the warhorse stepped into the stream, it seemed trapped by an invisible ancient force. It struggled wildly, sinking deeper into the mud. Meanwhile, Sunni Ali, the brilliant commander who had reacted with astonishing agility amid countless bloody battles, froze like a wooden statue. He made no movement as the silt rose steadily, covering his saddle, his chest, and finally his stern, lonely and weary face. Generals and soldiers rushed over in terror from hundreds of meters away, but when they reached the bank, the stream had fallen silent once more. Only a golden royal helmet spun slowly on the muddy surface before sinking beneath the water. The undefeated founding emperor of West Africa met his end in this uncanny way, perishing in a dry riverbed too shallow to drown even a goat. His magnificent life, woven with magic and legend, came to a quiet close. The next morning after Sunni Ali sank into the silt, Askia Muhammad launched a bloodless palace coup. He removed Sunni Ali's young sons, who were still overwhelmed by grief, and claimed the supreme throne of the Songhai Empire. The new emperor established Islam as the empire's sole official religion, purged all traditional shamans from the court, and rewrote history to portray Sunni Ali as a villain tainted by devilry, heresy, and dark magic. 100 years later, the mighty Songhai Empire, once witness to boundless glory and brutal bloodshed, crumbled completely under the gunfire of Moroccan troops, reduced to forgotten ruins scattered across the West African desert. Looking back on this grand chapter buried under sand for 5 centuries, people today cannot help but feel a deep sense of emptiness and melancholy. Whether Sunni Ali, torn between two faiths, praying to Allah by day and communing with spirits by night, was a true hero who safeguarded his nation with iron will in a barbaric age, or a tyrant consumed by power and sorcery, may no longer matter. What he truly left behind for this red land is a testament to the extreme complexity and loneliness of the human soul when crushed by the tides of time. As the story draws to an end, the swirling sands and mournful war drums of the West African desert must have faded from your mind. Only the faint hearth fire continues to burn gently and quietly in the night. The monarch who never tasted defeat and chose to rest alongside his horse in a peaceful riverbed has surely found the eternal peace he had spent a lifetime seeking, deep within the cold, dark silt of the Niger River. Tonight, you have journeyed through this magical and realistic epic spanning 5 centuries, walking alongside him through his lonely and weary days. Close your eyes. Let this soothing and composed narration calm all your restlessness, and drift slowly into a peaceful dream, free from power struggles and religious conflicts, beneath a desert sky filled with countless stars. May you have a peaceful night's sleep.